Deep in Spain, there lived a man named Alonso Quijano. He was retired and lived a quiet life. He loved stories about brave knights and their amazing adventures. He read tons of books about them. He wished he could have adventures too, like the heroes in his books. He read so much that he started to mix up stories with real life. Alonso decided to become a knight. He thought the world needed a hero like him, someone who was fair and brave. He didn't want to just read about adventures anymore. He wanted to have them. He wanted to help people, fight bad guys, and be a real hero. Even though he was old, he felt young and excited inside. He was ready for his own big adventure. Every knight needs a horse. Alonso picked his old horse and named him Rocinante. Rocinante wasn't very fancy, but Alonso thought he was the best horse ever. Knights also need a princess to love. Alonso chose a farmer named Aldonza Lorenzo. He called her Dulcinea del Toboso and pretended she was a beautiful princess. Now, he needed a knight name. He chose Don Quixote de la Mancha. Don Quixote put on his rusty armor and rode off on Rocinante. He had a big job to do. He was ready to fight any danger for his princess, Dulcinea. He was brave and ready for anything. He was a real knight, ready for adventure. Every knight needs a helper, a squire. Don Quixote asked his friend, Sancho Panza, to be his squire. Sancho was a farmer who liked simple things: good food, drinks, and sleep. He didn't really understand Don Quixote's big plans, but he was a good friend. So, Sancho rode on his donkey next to Don Quixote. He listened to Don Quixote talk about giants and dragons. Sancho tried to remind Don Quixote what was real. He knew windmills weren't giants and inns weren't castles, but Sancho also saw that Don Quixote was a good person. He liked that Don Quixote always tried to do the right thing. Sancho stayed with him, even when Don Quixote's imagination got them into silly situations. One hot day, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza saw some windmills. "Look, Sancho, giants!" Don Quixote shouted. Sancho looked at the windmills and their big sails turning. "Those are windmills, Don Quixote," Sancho said. "Giants!" Don Quixote yelled. He held his lance ready. "Get ready to fight!" Don Quixote charged at a windmill. His lance hit a sail and broke. Don Quixote went flying and landed on the ground. Sancho ran to help him. "I told you they were windmills," Sancho said. Don Quixote, hurt but still sure of himself, said a wizard had turned the giants into windmills. Don Quixote's adventures continued. He thought an inn was a castle. He attacked some monks, thinking they were bad wizards. He even tried to save some prisoners because he thought they were captured unfairly. Every adventure was crazier than the last. But Don Quixote never gave up. He always saw what he wanted to see, not what was real. And Sancho Panza stayed with him, his loyal helper and friend. Don Quixote's family wanted him to come home. They tricked him into a cage, saying it was a magic carriage to take him to Dulcinea. Don Quixote believed them and got in. Back home, his family was happy to see him. They hoped he would start thinking clearly again. They burned his night books, hoping he would forget his fantasies. Everyone heard about Don Quixote's adventures. They heard about him fighting windmills and saving princesses that weren't real princesses. Some people laughed at him. Others thought he was brave for believing in good things. Someone wrote a book about him. He was famous and a little silly, But people liked his stories. They saw a bit of themselves in him. Someone who followed his dreams, even if they were a little crazy. Don Quixote, the man who fought windmills, became a legend. A young knight, the Knight of the White Moon, heard about Don Quixote. He challenged Don Quixote to a fight. He said his princess was prettier than Dulcinea. Don Quixote, always ready to defend his princess, agreed to fight. The two knights met. The Knight of the White Moon was a better fighter and knocked Don Quixote off his horse. He won the fight. The Knight of the White Moon told Don Quixote to go home and stop being a knight. Don Quixote, sad and defeated, agreed. He felt embarrassed. He finally saw that he had been living in a made-up world. He said he wasn't Don Quixote anymore, just Alonso Quijano. He became very sad and stayed in bed. He wouldn't eat or drink. He died quietly with his family. Sancho Panza was very sad that Don Quixote died. He had been with him through everything, the good and the bad. He knew Don Quixote wasn't perfect, but he was a good person who tried to do what was right. Sancho missed his friend. He realized that even though their adventures were silly, he loved Don Quixote. When Don Quixote died, their adventures ended. Sancho was sad, but also happy. He had known such a special, imaginative man.